If you are a hobby baker at the moment who is wanting to transition from hobby baking into becoming a business, I know perhaps you've spoken to quite a few people who have told you in the UK to be able to sell cakes, you have to get registered. But you think there is a ton of things that you may be missing, or there has to be something to be done before you get registered to set yourself up as a business. If that's you, welcome. You are onto the right video, because in this video, I'm going to be giving you the blueprint to set yourself up properly before registering your business. It will set you up for a great start, and you will find that before even registering for a business, there's a back end of things that you have to do to be able to set yourself out successfully. The good thing about this video is I'm not going to be giving you just a generalized how to, because I'm going to be giving you the blueprint of my own experience, breaking down small steps that you can achieve to set yourself up in an organized manner before registering as your business. You will find that the things you do now will help set you up for the best result when you eventually get set up as a business. So if you're new here, hello and welcome. My name is Gladys, and over here I make simple, informative tutorials to educate you about cake decorating so that you can have a great experience, especially if you're a beginner or pros alike. My videos into small explanations, explaining the intention behind the processes that I use, the techniques that I employ to achieve a cake design, so that you are informed about why I do what I do, which should help inform you and help you build confidence through your cake decorating process. So if you want to learn about cake decorating, you're onto the right channel. If you check the channel homepage, there's a ton of videos out there for you to check out, from cakes to buttercream. But enough of that. Today, I've had a long day in my kitchen. I've been baking, I have decorated 2 cakes, and it's almost 10 o'clock. But I thought I'll come and sit here and talk to you about what you can do to achieve some success on the back end before registering your business. I am hoping this will be a series where over time you will have a catalog of videos that will inform you to help you achieve success in setting your business up. And like I said, it is not just going to be a generalized how to do this, do that. You'll find that these are very practical, achievable steps that you need to employ to help yourself feel less stressed, less anxious, and face your fears, yet set yourself up. So unless you are a master pastry student who has attended pastry school, hold an MBA in business, somehow has a ton of experience in a business, a set of customers beyond family and friends, I believe you're just someone in your kitchen at the moment, baking from home or in a small place, however else you got into baking. You already have something else you're focused on largely, and cakes are a side hustle. Either way, cakes are not your source of income yet, but you have a decent skill. You have some recipes that are trusted, both whatever you're baking and buttercream, whatever it is, you have some recipes. Friends and family and beyond are encouraging of your skill, and you think you've got to a point where you have to make a decision. The decision is almost just here, but you don't know where to start. Well, where to start is obviously to become a business, you have to get registered. In the UK, you have to register 28 days before you set yourself up for trading as a cake business. But because of backlog and administrative issues, you can inform them about your intention to want to trade. They might put you on a waiting list, and your EHO will come out at some point. So it's appears as though, or I have been duly informed through research, that it is likely you can start trading long before the EHO visit. Now, if you wonder what an EHO is an environmental health officer, someone who is in charge of coming to assess and inspect your premises, observing whether you are following all recommended food safety practices, and then will deem your environment safe for you to prepare food in. After all their assessment and observations based on things that are supposed to be done, they will give you a rating, which will then validate yourself as a business premises where you can start making cakes. I think there is more to it about food businesses, but we are centering our attention on cake making. But like I said, this video is not about the registration process. Hopefully that should be a video another day. This particular video centers on the things that you have to do before you get to the point of registration. So right now, if you're wondering what you are supposed to do, the question I want to ask you is, what have you already done? And if you don't know what you have already done or unsure, first of all, do you have a phone? I'm sure in our modern day and age, everyone has an access to a phone. And if you have a phone, that is the starting point. If you're hoping to transition into a business, perhaps this is the right time to consider dedicating an exclusive number to your phone. You may want to start as simple as getting a new SIM that is exclusively going to be tied to your business. If you're not in a state of confusion about what you want to do, you are clear on what you want to do in your near future. You just don't know how to set yourself up and be better prepared for your inspection and all of that stuff. So this is just like a tick box or a check mark of things that you are supposed to have done at this moment in time. So if you have a number exclusively dedicated to customers, at the moment in time, you're not a registered business. So perhaps you don't have customers. But where I reference customers, it's just insert family members or people that you at this point in time is making cakes for. The guidelines in the UK are such that if you are not registered, you can't sell cakes and you can't charge for cakes. The guidelines are that you can charge for as little as enough for ingredients. However else you decide that is completely discretionary to you, as long as you can justify what you have charged for the cake you are making. And I'll leave that there. So if at the moment, for however you get around it, you're able to get a small income because you are charging just enough for your ingredients and it's working for you. If you've made a few cakes for people, you understand you have a decent skill. So at this point, if you're going to be transitioning, you want to make sure that there's a dedicated number prepared in advance for that transition. And a practical thing you can do is consider getting a different SIM. Modern phones can hold up to 2 SIMs. So for that reason, you can get a new SIM, put it in your same phone, and make sure that there's a clear distinction between interaction that are personal contact and business contact. You'll find that that is a small investment that will help you set a boundary and separate your business contact from your personal contact. If you can't invest in a SIM card for now or make any investment towards that, I don't suppose that is a bad thing, because eventually, if you even start with your own personal number, you are going to have to transition it and have an exclusive or a dedicated phone number for responding to customers eventually. When you get to that point, perhaps there will be the slight inconvenience of resetting that, and you may lose numbers and all of that. So at this moment in time, if I'm thinking of transitioning to becoming a cake business, what I'll probably do is get a number that I know for a lifetime. As long as my business remains, it will be connected to my business. So even though I am not trading at this point in time, the number is still the place people can find me. And you will find that this is a running thread that will eventually help you set yourself up. So that's the first thing. You can use your personal phone or get a new SIM that is dedicated to your phone. I'm supposing that at this point you have an idea of business names, but we will come to that. If you haven't determined a business name and all of that, not to worry. We will be covering all of that in another live section. But right now, pick up your phone, ensure that everyone who wants a cake, whether it's a free cake, whether you're charging for ingredients, or you have offered your skill up as a gift to somebody, just make sure there is a dedicated contact that they can reach you on. Moving on. I suppose everyone has social media. And if you don't, that is okay. And the social media is not for marketing. We are not there yet. You don't have customers. You don't have a business name. You're not a business. So certainly you are not trying to find a social media outlet to market anything. But you know what social media presence can do for you. If you have your own personal one, it can serve as a medium where you can keep your gallery of images, which will eventually become your repertoire of work that you will be using for advertisement. Now, you can keep those photos or images on your phone, but what if your phone gets lost? But if you also don't have a social media presence at this point in time, that's okay. If you find an online resource, if you find your Dropbox or Google storage services, you should be able to keep those images so that they are organized and collected at one place. You will find out how that becomes important and helpful for you eventually. So at this moment in time, you have a phone number dedicated to contacts for cakes. Mind you, you're not a business. You have a social media where you are going to be keeping your images. And I've noted that if you don't have a social media, you can find third parties, like I said, Dropbox or something where you can go and keep your images there. But if you do want to set up a new social media, that is completely up to you. My advice will be very clear on what social media site you are already active on. That is, if you already have access to some sort of social media. It's not worth starting a whole social media presence and getting to know it. If you have the time, why not? But I find at this stage, you are already dealing with a lot of confusion. You're dealing with a lot of uncertainty. You're dealing with a lot of anxiety about the decision you are making to transition. So it is not the time to overwhelm yourself by going to learn something new or something that will confuse you or spark your fear. So you might as well just stick with what you already are using. If you're on Facebook, go back to your Facebook, have a look at your Facebook and ask yourself, what does this look like if I send a potential customer to my Facebook? Will they look at me as a business? Or is there a bikini shorts there that might interfere with the images I'll be sending to a potential customer? And at this point, you might just want to tidy up your own personal social media if you want to. And I mean, tidy it up as in, if you're going to be using this social media as a means of sending these photos, you just don't want the risk of sending a photo that about your cakes and then a personal photo of yours pops up on it. So essentially, whilst I am not saying you should go and clean up your social media to become something you are not, what I'm essentially also saying is that clean your social media so that it has a professional feel to it. By so doing, when you send your links for a photo gallery out to customers eventually, or even right now, friends of friends, you don't feel like people are intruding. And certainly you don't want your own personal images to be mixed up with cake photos. But with Facebook, you can create separate galleries where you can keep your images. So the point of having a social media presence is to keep some sort of online resource or a repertoire for your images. Essentially, that's it. It's not there to post where you are on Instagram, because you will find that marketing takes a lot of your time and skill as a business. So you just don't want to try overwhelming yourself. But if you are adept with social media, something you enjoy, you can start learning the ropes right now. But that's not the point of what I am trying to say at this moment in time. Now we have a phone. We have sorted out our social media just as a place to organize our images. But the question we want to ask ourselves are the images great enough to speak for our skill? People buy or people eat what they see. Perception is reality. What people see online informs them and tells them something about you. So at this moment in time, are you confident about the pictures you already have? Because like I'm saying, you're not the person who has just started and you're learning to bake and all of that. You've baked enough. You're in the grind of baking. You have some confidence about how to bake. You understand the processes. You have taken a few classes here and there. Whatever you've done, whether you've watched YouTube videos or informed yourself by taking an apprenticeship, You are at a place where the decision to become a business is not foreign. You just don't know how. So, as a result of that, you may have a selection of pictures of cakes you made for your family, friends, or friends of friends. But ask yourself right now, as you're listening to this live session, when you look at those photos, what do they look like? What will someone who doesn't know you think when they see those photos? Will they think, that's a sloppy cake that needs a bit of work, or there is something in the background of that cake that may be off-putting? I'll share my own experience with you. When I started cake making a little over 8 years ago, I was very clear that I didn't want to be taking sloppy photos. Now, if I wasn't showing this live on my phone, I would share some of my previous photos with you. But what I'll probably do is that I will select some photos and post them on the community tab so that you can go back and see some of my first photos as a cake maker. Now, I would admit that at that point, I didn't know any better. I just knew that I wanted to do better with presenting my cakes right. I actually started with cupcakes, and I'll take these photos on my stove top, and it had a tile backsplash, I think. And whilst the photos themselves were not bad because the cakes were presented better, now looking back, I was like, God, I wish someone had told me. I'll tell you this, my son's grandmother at the time, who actually was very encouraging, will see the pictures of the cakes that I have made, and she will point things out. I lived in a little flat at the time, and she will see those photos, and she has some background about photography, so she will look and she will point things. I would say I never made a fuss of it, but every time she picked at something, I'd be like, why can't you just enjoy this image rather than trying to always correct something? Look, I'm older now. I'm a bit more mature. I understand that all she was trying to do was help me get better results at the time. So, with that in mind, I knew the cake photos could be better, but I didn't have the resources. So, what did I do? I eventually transitioned from taking the photos on my stovetop to taking them just by my window. Now, over time, I would take these photos on a foam board that I bought from Hobbycrafts. There were two foam boards that I placed one on top of each other like this, if you like, and then I'll cover it with a white sheet and I'll take the photos. Essentially, the photos are not like skilled photography type of photographs, but they were clean. And essentially, at this point in time, what you should be focusing on is not to become a photographer or an amazing, skilled photo director of any sort. What you just want to focus on is clean images. Are your photos clean enough? Are they clean that they don't have distractions in the background, or there is something in the background that may be off-putting? A cleaner white set image will speak better than an image that is cluttered, and it also takes away from what you are trying to show. So you want to make an effort to make sure that the photograph represents you well, because if it looks all cluttered and dark in the background, it screams unprofessional. I mean, we've all done that. I go on social media and I'm looking at certain photos and I'm looking at certain videos. The lights are great. And I'm like, wow, that looks super professional. There's probably a ton of things that this person is doing that is not representative of what reality is as far as the video is concerned. But as long as they've taken time to set the shots right and the presentation looks appealing, I'm sold. And I'm sure the same applies to you. How many photos have you seen on social media that you've been warned by, but you don't even know the story? That the photo was taken in a corner of a room somewhere where it's all cluttered, but the shot is so clean, it doesn't tell you the story of the space this photo is coming from. I say that to also say, for what it is worth, that I am not encouraging you to represent your images by tweaking them in unrealistic ways where it will misrepresent or misinform the customer. Eventually, what you put out there, the customer is going to demand that of you. So if you go out of your way to put up Images that are fake, especially in this day and age where AI and resources can be used to represent images that are so unrealistic, then you're probably setting yourself up for a fall before you even start as a business. So I will not overkill the point. My point here is that make sure you have some clean photos. And if you don't, use your phone. Take some photos of your phone, unless you have an old phone that doesn't have a camera. Look, way back in 2014, when I started, I had a Samsung and a Huawei. Can you imagine how many years ago was that? And like I said, I will post the photos on my community tab and you will see I have some pictures that are still represented on my website today that were taken on those phones, because over time I informed myself and learned about how to take just a clean image. And like I said, you don't have to be a photographer. So YouTube is your place to learn. Find out people are out here showing the skills and the behind the scenes. I think I even have a short where I am taking a photo right on my in my lounge on a carpet, but everything is laid out flat. If I showed you the shot on a camera and on the phone, you can see the difference, but the image is still the same. So use what you have, start with what you have. And at this point, the 3 steps I have already given you, which is to make sure you have a contact phone, you have a social media that is clean and represents well professionally, so you can use it as a medium for saving your images, and also making sure you have clean images, are all achievable practical things you can do to help set yourself up for success. Now tell me what you think about it so far. Now, where are you in your journey? Are you completely this novice and this person who has no idea about any of this, and what I am saying right here is new to you, or you have already implemented some steps which is moving you forward? What am I missing so far here? Leave that as a comment, and hopefully I will take notes of that, and in our next session we will be discussing that further. The next thing you want to do is go on a review collecting project. Now, I should preface that by saying that I'm not saying just go and get reviews that are unrealistic or not representative of your skill level and what you are going to be doing. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if you're already baking for family and friends and beyond, work colleagues and that, you have a good understanding of your skill at this point. For you to be considering a business, especially if you're not delusional about your own skill, then at least you have an idea of the people who enjoy your goods already. Go out of your way to keep those people, but more importantly, at this point in time, step outside your comfort zone. I'll tell you why. Because if you have any inclination about what a business is, you'll find out that all the reviews given by family and friends can be taken with a pinch of salt, okay? Those people love you. Your mom loves you, your sister loves you, your dog loves you. So eventually they are all going to be out here supporting you. And I'm not saying they are selling you dreams and they are telling you things that are not true. That's not what I'm saying. What I am suggesting here is that the people who love you will support you nonetheless, because they want to see you succeed. But that's not what business is about. You're going to meet people who will not like what you're selling. And it's not because what you're selling is bad. It's just because their preferences to what you are selling is different. It's food. Food has a tendency to affect people differently. What you like may not be what another person likes, and that is okay. So to gain some skill in how to communicate with strangers, which is a new field, because whatever you learn before you start a business, the real learning happens in the process of the business, learning to communicate with people. Because even if you communicate well with people already, unless you've set up a cake business before, you're going to have a different set of people who are ordering cakes that you're going to be communicating with. So going out of your way to speak to people who are not your family members, like that grumpy neighbor who has nothing nice to say about anything, make him a cake. That work colleague that you don't like very much, make him a cake. You know why? Because that's an opportunity for you to get some reasonable and balanced critique about what you are selling. It helps you build skill in interacting with challenging people and challenging situations. It exposes you and helps you look at your own weaknesses. If you're a person who gets up in your feelings because you didn't hear what you want to hear, then you might want to delay your intention to start a business rather for now. Because you know what? In business, nobody cares about what you feel. Cake customers will tell you they saw ants in the cake you delivered. The cake that everyone has enjoyed, that has become the cornerstone of all your recipes. Someone will tell you how that cake was dry, and you can't answer those questions. So my point is, go out of your way to get some solid, balanced advice or feedback. I think the word I'm looking for is feedback. Go out of your way to look for some solid, balanced feedback from people who are not within your circle of influence, if you like. So your boss will have a tendency to not be too friendly with you. I mean, they're your boss, right? So make them a cake and see what they think about it. And if they're a good person, they're not blowing smoke up your somewhere, then know that at least you are on track. And whilst you are doing that, you are going to find out that you're learning something new on the journey as you're going on. You're learning something about yourself. You're learning something about how you deal with situations. You are finding out how to adapt in challenging situations. And even giving those cakes to other people outside of friends and family presents an opportunity for you to be able to test the same recipe that is a hit with other people. Say if people outside your core group don't like it, then that's an opportunity for you to do something different. That is not to say to change your recipe completely, but it also means that it gives you a chance to adapt the recipe or make a different batch for different sorts of people. And that's how you grow a repertoire of recipes for different individual preferences. And I'm giving you the tea about how I started my business. I wish the information that says go and register your business and do all of this went back and told me how I should have prepared. Because long by the time I came to registering my business, I realized I struggled with everything else, including keeping my accounts. It was all new to me because all I wanted to do was make cakes. I struggled with social media. In fact, eventually it's YouTube that I have fallen in love with because I love this educating and talking about cakes and creating long form content. So I fell in love with YouTube as a YouTube watcher long before I made a video, and I've stuck with it. But if you look at my other social media places, they are good as dead because as a business owner, I have never been able to be invested in social media. You know why? Instagram is distracting. You will post and post and post, and you'll be there scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and you get nowhere. So I just wish somebody would have told me. So I am sharing this with you passionately to encourage you to say, there are things you will have to do long before. There are paperwork to organize and stuff like that. But we'll be talking through that. So we have a phone sorted. We have a social media where we will use that as a gallery for storing our images. We will aim to take good and clear photos for now. And we are going to go out of our way to get some reviews from people who are not necessarily our friends. Now, how do we organize those reviews? How? Because you're not just going to get reviews for the sake of getting them. You want to be able to store them in a way that come registration of your business, you have in business, there's a name for it. It's escaped me. My brain is gone blank, but I'll come to it. There is some proof of what other people think of your business. So what you can do is if you sent your boss a cake and they sent you a lovely feedback, be clear about your intentions and why you're giving them a cake. Be honest with them and let them know that you want to hear what they have to say honestly. So you're not just giving them a cake so they say something nice about you. You're giving them a cake so that they can critique the cake for you. So if they like it and they send you a text to say, oh, lovely cake, perhaps take a screenshot of that and save that as an image, because eventually you will be putting that up in your story, or you will say organize that in a certain category, say on Instagram or on Facebook. What you want to do is that you are keeping your reviews organized, because as time goes by, if you just save these messages, obviously if they come through your phone or via email, they are all distributed in places where you will not be able to get access to them. And by the time, say if you're a year away from registering as a cake maker, but you are doing your back end work now, in a year you would have made so many cakes, you would have had so many good things. That is if you are doing a great job. So it's going to be hard to organize, go back in time, all of these messages. And now you're going to be registering your business, yet all this information is everywhere, unorganized. So at this point in time, make a conscious effort and be intentional about organizing these details. Take a screenshot of it, crop the message, but just make sure there is a timestamp. You can probably delete or scroll off like personal information like names and stuff, but otherwise take image photos of that and save those, because eventually those will become the evidence to support what you do and what people think about what you do. Because when you eventually become a business, what do I think? You are going to be able to get lots of people giving you feedback and reviews. Eventually, it will come through your Instagram, Facebook. If you have a website or some presence on Google, you're going to hear all about this. But right now, you're not there yet. So you want to be able to give people something to consider, something, some evidence of proof of what you are already making and what people think about your cake. Because it can also be awfully challenging for a customer to think you're a new baker. Even if you've been baking for 10 years, they didn't know about your business until they saw it pop up. So they don't have any confidence in your credibility. So having these things already set in advance when you come to being registered means that you are able to tell a customer that you are better organized. Does that make sense? Anyway, we're taking all these steps, but I'm sure you're asking yourself also, if I can't make money out of selling cakes at this point as a hobby baker, how do I continue to make cakes for people, and how do I get to make money back, or how do I even make all of these things happen? The answer isn't as simple, but it's also simple. The simple answer is, for any business to start, it requires a sort of investment from you. The investment will come in time, commitment, and money. So at this point in time, it is fair to say that much of what you'll be doing may come from your own investment monetarily. And as identified, I did say perhaps you're baking at this point and cakes are not your source of income, but you have something else that is a full-time job. It means you're going to have to find a way of investing into this. The other option is also getting people to pay for the ingredients. If it's family, you can go shopping with them for the ingredients and then you make them a cake. So essentially your skill is the gift. But it can awfully be very difficult for people to understand, because when people know you're new to to the business of cake, they are almost always looking for something for nothing, if you like. So it can be awfully difficult to get people to just pay you even enough for ingredients for a cake they are not sure about. So these are some of the challenges for you. So you have to make a decision about your circumstance on how you wish to achieve these goals. At the end of the day, you've also got to think about the fact that you are gaining something from the transaction. So it's not about what they give you essentially. Think about what you're getting out of the experience. And if it will help, perhaps set some specific goals for how many people you want to make cakes for, what the investment for you is in terms of money, and what negotiation ability you can reach with these people, so that, say, if you picked up 5 people in your friends and family category that you wanted to make cakes for, I mean, that will involve a certain amount of money. And if you spread that to yourself over time. Say you're making one cake a month, you can then put all your skill on that one cake and just think about what you're going to get out of it. Because if you get 6 good photos from 6 different cakes you have made over a period of, say, 3-4 months, think about what that is going to do for you. But if you just make it a point of just making cakes for people for free, that can also risk setting your reputation back. Because eventually, when you transition to a business, it is going to be difficult to manage those relationships because people have gotten used to getting free stuff, and you find that people become mad at you because you have set your boundaries. So a quick advice is to make sure that you set your intentions very clear from the start. But making an investment monetarily into the starting pages is important. At this point, one very important thing that I would like to share with you is to make sure that whatever you're doing, any project you're taking, write your numbers down. Now, that is the most boring things. You'll find that if you're a cake maker and you're creative and you're passionate about creating cakes, the boring aspects will be the admin and all of this and understanding your prices and that stuff. And that is super boring. But having an idea about how much time goes into making a cake and what your ingredients cost is important at this point. You can start now, especially now that you don't have the pressure. Because when you then become an established business, the pressure is much on you because then you have to determine your prices, and that becomes very difficult for you, especially if you're overwhelmed with different sorts of business activity. But right now, it's a very slow going process. No one is on your case. It is enough time for you to take a cake for a friend and then perhaps determine how much time. So use that as your research time. And about the ingredients, look, you don't need an accountant. If you do, great. And if you don't have any ideas about how to use spreadsheets, I tell you where you can go. ChatGPT is your friend. That's the secret. ChatGPT. You know why? Because if you went to tell ChatGPT, just go to the prompt and go, ChatGPT, if flour, a kilogram of flour is, say, £2 10 pence, how much is a 350 grams? Because you know your recipe, you know the measurement, so you can just align your measurements of ingredients to the bulk purchase and speak to ChatGPT. You'll find ChatGPT will work this out for you, and you can write those things down because you can use ChatGPT to determine your cake ingredients. Honestly, that's the secret. I've used that before. I don't use that a lot now, but I have used that before because at some point when I had to develop new recipes, sitting there with spreadsheets and accounting is difficult for me. I just want to make a cake. I don't want to be bogged down with numbers. But those things are important to help you determine your prices. And yes, pricing is a confidence issue. And yes, there is a lot of things that influences the price of a particular business's cake. We can't all have the same price. And I know the subject of pricing is rather tricky. I'm not going to be telling you how much to charge, and if you're charging less or more, none of my business. You have the resources and information to determine how much you should charge. But I can tell you this for nothing. If you have no idea how much your cake costs, eventually you are going to run yourself to the ground and be very unmotivated. You'll be shocked at how much you will lose in terms of running your business. So my encouragement to you is that at this moment in time, use the opportunity to inform yourself. Take time to determine some of these things whilst there is really no pressure on you to do these things. And on the back end, that will set you up. So we are getting to actually the practical things that you are setting up gradually. Now that you have determined some of the prices of your cake ingredients, it's worth mentioning that right now, all the steps I have given you will amount to nothing if you have an inner critic or something in you that is scaring you and making you feel as though this is impossible. And yes, Venturing into uncertainty and something new is scary. Anybody told you starting a business is not scary, it's lying to you. I still don't have the answers. I fail it sometimes. Have you seen my cake videos? Well, yeah, you have, right? There are days that the cakes are rather challenging, and this is more than 8 years of work. And I can tell you, there are no perfect days. The business income is not always consistent. There are peak times and there are low times. Anybody out here telling you how they make business money all year through, good luck to them. But it's not the reality for most businesses, especially if you're starting. So the idea of leaving a traditional job to starting a business is scary, very scary. But you know what is reassuring? Yes, feel the fear anyway, but do it. But I'm not saying be unrealistic about how you proceed to doing this, which is why I am giving you these practical steps to setting yourself gradually to the point where if you can see the things you have achieved along the way, then it won't be that hard for you to see that some things are actionable and achievable. So, with your fear, you need to face your fear. You need to sit down and have a long conversation with yourself. And some of the questions you want to ask yourself is, why do you want this? Is it that you enjoy baking and your boss is annoying you and you don't want to be bothered about being told what to do? In your staff appraisal, you get negative reviews, so you might as well do well with running your own business so nobody can tell you what to do. Well, if that's your limited intention for running a business, it will end very quickly, okay? Because business is long hours. Customers will tell you how much they want to pay for the cake you spend 10 hours making. People will be mad at you for not responding to your dear cakes. There's a whole lot of things that you will be dealing with. So you'll find very quickly if it's just the annoyance of your boss, that's actually the easiest part. So stay in your job and just keep baking over here as a hobby, sis. Okay. But I say that to say there should be more. There is more. There should be more to your intention. Ask yourself, how committed are you? Are you a person who just quits when it gets harder? Because sis, it's going to get hard. Business will get hard when the money is not coming in and you're not sure where you're headed and the cake is melting in the summer. Trust me, you're going to question yourself over why you started this in the first place. You are also going to find out that if you don't have a stronger reason or belief for doing this, you're not going to go further than that. Because contrary to what everybody will tell you, oh, business takes a long time. You know, that person who just popped up, who is doing so well with your cake and it's so polished out there, that is probably decades of work, right? So, what is your peculiar situation? If your fear centers on the certainty of finances, how prepared are you? Do you have a savings to hold you whilst you transition? Do you have a partner whose income can cover you? Because I tell you, you will need some support beyond yourself. And sometimes the fear we feel is set in actual um, tangible experiences we are having. So if at home you know that you're just by yourself, if you went and committed to making cakes over here, you couldn't pay for your rent, sis, maybe you need to take your time, right? When you come to registration, there are also limitations. So what is your fear? That's not something I can tell you, but you have to determine that and address it with facts. But one of the things you have to understand is that there will never be a perfect scenario for you to make the transition and face the fear equally anyway. So, what you can do best for yourself is mitigate your fear. And the only way you can mitigate your fear is actual looking at the fear for what it is, analyzing it critically and honestly, and providing solutions to mitigate that fear. So, if your fear is that if you left your job, it's impossible for you to keep up your keep up with your living costs, then perhaps the intention to transition at this moment in time may not be feasible. So you want to continue gradually and see how much time you commit. But I'll tell you something that is less spoken about. You'll also find that keeping a full-time job and doing the thing that you're doing on the side, you will never be able to make up time for the other. If you were waiting to find some time from your full-time job one day so that you can invest in your part-time gig over here, which is baking, you'll find that it's going to be impossible. So either way, there is going to be this mountain in front of you that is going to be scary to climb over. Nobody can do that for you. But if you are committed to this journey, you want to ask yourself the tough questions. You want to have answers and solutions best as possible to these tough questions, and perhaps get some support. Speak to the people who are around you, who love you, who will be honest with you but will encourage you. Sometimes when you are in a moment of fear, the last thing you want to do is speak to negative Nancy. Negative Nancy might want to encourage you over here, but what they are doing is negative Nancy is projecting their own fears and their viewpoint of their experiences on you. This can be very crippling. So perhaps it's normal that people who love you would try to warn you against the risk. They don't want to see you fail. But if you ask yourself the tough questions, how much commitment do you have evidence of work on yourself that you know you're going to be committed? Long before I came to make cakes, you know what? I had a job that on average for nearly a decade, I worked 12 to 14 hours a day. I worked more than 60 hours a week, right? So if I was, whether I was sick, I could tell you some stories about my time in a traditional work life, right? And I fell into cakes, but it occurred to me as though if I was able to commit to waking up, showing up for somebody else at this point in a decade, could I do that for myself? And yes, I was certain about that. Well, the reality is slightly different though, because some days when you don't have the stick chasing you, which is if you don't have that thing that is pursuing you out of your comfort zone, you wake up and you want to sleep. The thing that wants to keep you in your business eventually when you set it up is the passion. Because when you don't have the threat of a boss firing you and you have the support of a partner who is covering your living costs, you might just want to sleep a little bit more. But you know what they say? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the arms. I'll leave you to finish that up. So, in summary, that means you need all the steps I have given you will amount to nothing if your inner work and inner critic and fears are not faced head on. And I've already mentioned some of the ways you can mitigate those issues. Now that we have discussed all of that, let's give a scenario of, say, Jane. Jane is getting divorced. She's been baking for 6 years. Jane wants to transition to making a full-time income. Jane, before her separation, and a sort of undeclared income that she thought was reasonable. So now that Jane is facing a divorce ahead of her, Jane wants to transition to become a full-time business, but doesn't know how does she transition to become to earn a decent income. Now that is a question that I have been asked a few times, and this has been adapted slightly to just protect Jane, if you like. But if you are Jane at this point in time, transitioning into a business is going to be slightly difficult. But of course, your situation, Jane's situation, is going to determine. I don't have the clear specifics here, but this will not be the time to transition. I'll tell you why. You are already dealing with a lot, which is separating. There's going to be change of routine. If you have children, it's going to be such an unsettling thing. And naturally, because of the fear of, say, the income status changing. I can see the attraction of why you might want to transition to get a full-time income. But you know what? With the change of your life comes the huge responsibility also of transitioning and running the business. If you are already set up, then yeah, why not? Because you already have the experience and figures and you're aware of some of the things you do. But if you were just earning cakes as a side income, it is going to be completely difficult to transition now while still all this upheaval is happening on the back end. So, Jane, what you might want to do is take it easy, follow the steps that I have already given you. And if you think you have already gotten to this point and you don't need any of these steps because you're already in the experience of baking and doing it, then I tell you what to do. Wait till the divorce is over, get set, determine your routine, and register and start trading. Essentially, that's what you should do. But trying to transition and doing all of these things whilst you have such difficulty in your life and uncertainty is going to set you back a little bit, and it's going to require more of you because starting a business takes a lot out of you. So you just want to be able to probably at this point in time, what you have done for years and years, whatever career you have had for years and years, is probably getting difficult because your life is going to change. You might want some flexible working hours, whatever it is, or you might not even want the career anymore because maybe your work colleagues are not supportive of your situation. I find that with such life-changing circumstances comes a lot of change in one's personal life. So as a result of that, Jane, if you want to transition to become a cake business, set a goal for how soon you can do that, but make sure everything around you is set before you do. Essentially, that's my opinion over here. Now, we have, say, Alia, who is 20. She's been baking since she is 14. She has 6 years of baking as a side hustle, and she wants to transition. Alia, the question is, have you already done all the things and more of what I have suggested? If you have, I am sure you have, after 6 years, you have some supportive family members to help you set yourself up. So I would say go for it. But if you're not sure, well, a few questions you want to ask yourself is the conversation about why you want to do this. Are you good at it? And do you think you can commit to what it takes to doing it? If you can answer this confidently, then go get some help to support you to get this done for you. There's neither right nor wrong or a good way or a bad way of doing this. But when I started cake making, these were the things that I didn't have access to. I didn't have access to this information. Most of the time I had, when I checked on YouTube, there will be cake makers who are informing me how to register. And yes, there are detailed resources out here. Look, to remain ignorant at this point in time is by choice. There is information out here where one can seek and be so informed, but it is very limited. So this is my own experience of how and what the things you can do. In my next live session, we'll be discussing having set all of these up and being ready to go. What are the things? We'll be discussing business names. I'll even give you the inside information on how to get a website set up for an affordable price, how to get a graphic designer. Look, I am here to spill the tea on what you need to do to move yourself forward so you can go on to becoming successful.